It's on me. Welcome to DevKami 195. And
Hello.
this is the Lots of Code edition. My name is Swimming.
I am Tristan.
I'm Chilio.
Yes, this is a factor of 5 episodes. So just some random stuff that's happening.
So it's not a
while-
prime.
It's definitely not a prime. It's a factor of 5. So with that said, here's a few things happening. Wait, let me turn off. Okay, so first, formulation that listens somehow. Register to vote, please. I don't care who you vote, just register.
Oh no, the auto registration is done now.
Yeah, make sure that you register properly and all that. You know what I mean? Double check your registration area.
When is the election?
Nobody
60
announced it
days.
yet.
It's
Yeah,
but
60 days.
it's already disband. It's not disbanded. Right? I thought it's the right word.
It dissolved.
Dissolve.
The dissolution.
Dissolve.
Yeah. So the parliament dissolution is already announced within 60 days. They have to do an election. No date have been presented yet. You guys are all automatically registered. Make sure you know where you are voting. It's too late to change anyway, and please vote. So yeah, that's about it. Yeah, and that's it.
Just give up or whatever. No, just if you give up, you lose the right to complain.
Yes. So first things are happening. This weekend have Tech Up. They are very active. So join them. It's about open source, tech, and all that. Maybe there's something out there.
They've been doing consistently.
Yeah, correct. So then that's about it, really. That's about it. So the next one is our news. Today we had a lot of news. A bit too much. My bad. So let me open one by one. Oh no, another production issue. Let's not go there. So first one is, okay, this is how you generate QR code in Python, just so that it exists. The library exists, and you should use the standard image processing library, Pillow. This one generate images. So yeah, okay, I just put it this because it exists. So most library have that. Find out we want to. This is something I will use. Anything to add? What's the Ruby version? It's called
Of what?
You know?
No.
Okay,
I've never
maybe.
used it before, though.
Okay, cool. Next one. So this is actually the history of Android. So the author, this is a transcript. It's actually very cool. And this is the person that I interviewed in are actually a bit later in the Android development history. So the person that interviewed shared works in Google 2010, whereas Android exists before that. They're working on Honeycomb. So this is actually one of the bigger releases. So yeah, this is about a story on how Android is developed. Not really the history of history per se. If you really want to go there, then both sides will really argue like who start first and all that. There's no point. But
Just do it.
Yeah, so what is interesting here is they also say that Android is from a company that Google purchased, and Google want it to be open source and open platform, so to say. So yeah, I won't say the intention is pure. Maybe they are, but it's also that they do not want a company to dominate the mobile market. So yeah.
But
So,
Nokia
yeah,
was
it's a
already dominating that time.
Not real. Yes and no. Yes and no. But so the thing about mobile in the
This is 2007, 2008, right?
Yeah, it's called Mimo. So what happened is your company called Symbian. You have Palm OS, then another company called Symbian. Symbian produced an operating system, which long time ago we talked about. They're releasing the source code. So Symbian is a very different approach of writing operating. It's a more open as in industry, open by industry standard and not open as in open source standard. So then Nokia bought it and introduced it and integrated Linux and all that. So Nokia do have. So you want again to argue who have what is really pointless, because I remember that at that time there's already PDA with plugin for GPS, plugin for also Wi-Fi and all sort of stuff either. So the technology is going to be there. Who's going to integrate? That's another story lah. So Palm OS have something like that. Symbian tried to do something like that. I had a Symbian phone that is actually running on Sony P900 that time. We use WAP, you know, that's actually pretty cool. What really different with Android is that they have an open SDK that people use. I do not know whether Apple have it at that time. Again, who files, I do not know. I won't argue with that. It's a whole different story, but that's interesting, right? You can write phone on a SDK, you can download. With Symbian, you have to write letter and hopefully you get it. With Palm, again, same thing. It's a very vendor-specific way of writing code versus Android, the Android way versus or the what way, or the modern way. I would call it the modern way. So last time you had to write a letter and get all that approval. This one you just pay for it. For in Apple case, you have to pay for the license to publish. For Android, you just download the SDK to test code. It's very different. So Symbian do not lose out because they do not open up the way the modern OSs does. In fact, think about it, so is BlackBerry OS and all that lah. So yeah. And also at that Android is very attractive in practice for some manufacturers, really, because Apple built their own thing. Other existing phone maker want to be still relevant, right? So as a result, Android is still there. Either way, this is a very cool story. So you should read it. It's on our website. I'm going to move on. This is very cool because, Keras is actually a neural network library. It's a high-level abstraction than TensorFlow. And they have computer vision specific libraries. Again, we have what they do have here is that they have stable diffusion as a model that we're ready to use. So what it means is, oh my goodness, I just realized that my other keyboard do not have plus key. So much better. So they have the stable diffusion as part of library. Of course, you need to download models and all that, but it's part of library ready to be used. So in this case, a text to image, something batch size 3, and you just plot your image. So yeah, and what is really cool is this actually explains a bit how stable diffusion work, how the models work, how it generates things, and all that. So yeah, so this is cool for, again, two reasons. The libraries, you just import, then they handle all the setup and all that, and of course, then it's a standard library that you can use. It's a bit, as I said, it's a bit fat. This library is still a bit big, but it's there if you have the power, you have the money and all that. So next one. This is interesting, not because it used the bot, because Python had a library had a whole set of OS libraries. Yeah, the PS utils, this is built in, web browser is built in. Paperclip is a third party that you had to install. So what happened is they're actually using the libraries and all that to actually control the Windows operating system. But in this case, they actually control the UI. As you can see, they actually do keyboard. They actually send. They actually call some libraries, and all that. So yeah, interesting for automating outside of the Unixes. So if you want to have an idea how to automate your Windows operating system, this is a good resource. Also interesting because they don't use the PowerShell thing. So anything to add? If not, I'm going to move on.
Yeah, I think John has Some
It's
clarification on ICANN.
Yep. So ICANN,
ICANN
let's talk about John.
International Certificate Authority, I think, for
Yeah.
network numbers or something. I think. I don't
Yeah,
know.
network numbers. Yeah, ICANN. No, I cannot. I shut up.
Yeah, so they're
It's
the
actually
ones who are responsible for your domain names, for your
correct.
IP addresses.
Correct. Yes. So this one, International Corporation of, I didn't give the name. Where's the about? Where's the about? Oh my goodness. It's so plain. Let me get a proper one. I can. No, I cannot. Okay, Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. So primarily in the US, they actually provide the database DNS and also internet space. So they're the one that actually give the IP addresses, DNS, DNS root keys and all that. So yeah, and they also do some public policy work as well. Oh, it's in Kuala Lumpur. Interesting. I know general. Okay. Oh, it's conclusive already. Yeah, they're the one that responsible for
This is the
internet.
virtual. This is the virtual program. So you don't attend
Correct.
physically. You attend virtually.
Correct. So yeah, they're the one that, like it or not, control the internet, but they try to be neutral when come to access and all that lah. So, which is some country don't like it, but that's another story altogether. So I can actually have an event. Had some event. I lost the thing. It's called virtual program. Blah blah. Blah. Yeah. So you can join in, but yeah, if you're interested. If you're interested, so you can join now. So let's move on. I'm so confused of what's happening actually. Making music with Python. Nothing here, just this is interesting because of the algorithm reason. So you can use color, then from the color you generate image song. Let's be a bit more selective, except everything is cool. So okay, so this is actually the Python way to actually inspect your object. Sometimes you want to write some RPC and all that. It's nice to know this kind of thing. Often you do not need to use it. 90% of the time you do not need to use it. But in advance of code, sometimes it's just easier to do some operation with this kind of thing because, for example, I use things like has attr or something dot attr name to do some operation. So yeah, in right interpreter, knowing this is actually cool. So this is called meta programming. So with this, you can inspect what object is available and you can manipulate it as you need it. You do not need to use it like 90% of the time, but it's useful if you have that lah. Do you have something similar with Ruby and all that?
Not sure.
Okay. As I say, most of the time you don't need to use this. So it's just some extra knowledge that really nice to have for you to play with and all that lah. In fact, most of the time you're not supposed to play at that level because you're overriding some operations that is hard to read and subverting people. You can do all sort of crazy thing that you should not do for the first place. So yeah. So this one is interesting because and implement. So the evolution of DALL-E, use text to image, is text to video. So you can use this to create a video. So with the paper, this Lucid Drains actually create a model in PyTorch for you to actually implement text to video model. So there's a video for this. So does it replace your Pixar? No, but one day it might. It more likely going to help you build as a start movie, then you edit it later, right? So yeah, text. So from start to image to text to video, which I in my opinion, it's actually a bit weird. But what do you guys think? Weird, cool.
It's how things progress, right? So it might be interesting.
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, sooner or later, but not
I think
very
sooner or
long.
later we're gonna have a DevKami episode that is AI generated.
One of these days, I'm going to try. Okay, so this one is for Python. Again, I focus a lot on Python because that's what I look at. SQL. This is a good SQL Alchemy tutorial. That's about it, really. Recently, I've been introducing this to one of my team members that have to use Python, aka data science person, because they are the only one that have to use Python and cannot. JavaScript just don't work. So she need to actually connect to database and introduce them and introduce her SQL Alchemy, because so that when she experiment or test the code on SQLite, she can just easily switch over to Postgres. They're actually running on production. So yeah, so that you can just switch over pretty easily. That's the idea. So yeah, SQL Alchemy, if you use Python, use it. It's very good. It's the best database toolkit that you have if you really have to use ORM.
I think it is one of the ORM.
Yeah, and also it's one of those guys that actually generate sane SQL compared to other ORM. So, but that's just me. This one is just a series of Python script for automation. Just because I think it's interesting. So yeah. I'm so sorry that a lot of these Python stuff, just because.
You better be sorry.
Yeah, I should share some JavaScripting instead. Right. Oops. Okay, let's start. So this is actually game of checkers. Yeah, it's called yeah, don't worry about that thing. So this is actually how do you build reinforcement learning. So last week we talked about the agent environment in Minecraft. So the reason they use that is actually to test reinforcement learning system. So we call it agents. So this is another place where the people actually test reinforcement learning is actually on games. So for example, reinforcement learning, I used to play the old Atari games, and more importantly, Go. So yes, Go is mostly pattern recognition problem, but they also have feedback system, and the feedback system is through reinforcement learning. And the reason why it's called reinforcement learning is because it reinforces the network based on what they learn. So whereas so they learn it as it goes, whereas you use the traditional network, you have to retrain until it's correct. So you done, then you train again and train again. Then you have backpropagation some data back, then you train again. So reinforcement learning is essentially an agent learning on its own. So in the Minecraft environment, they try to survive, attack, or try to attack the bosses and whatnot. In this case, you're using the agent to actually learn checkers. Even though checkers is a solved problem, which do not need to use neural network, but this is a good exercise for this.
Look at what Cairo said.
What Cairo said. Lol. So yeah, this as usual, this is using, I believe it's using Keras. I can't tell, but yeah.
Yeah, why don't they use Lembut?
Keras is actually a Greek word, not a Malay word, by the way. I think they use the word for that is horn, I think. So yeah, check this out if you want to know about reinforcement learning and what does it mean. Quickly, this is another. So this is actually a suite of software. This one is actually a library for sending email. There also then the previous one. This is actually the one that is reading the email.
It's not
Yep.
related to the Communist Party, right?
No. So this actually read from the mailbox. You do not actually set up the mailbox. So this would be useful for you to set up your, I don't know, Gmail and all that. So very interestingly, this is actually useful in my QA work until I decided that I don't care about email, because I have an email confirmation flow for authentication. But I do not need this now. But yeah, it's interesting to have lah. So how do you guys do email checking? Actually, email
No.
verification. We
Mail
don't,
gun.
right? Yeah, we just don't bother with it.
Mail
It's
gun.
the same here. Oh, use Mailgun. Okay.
Oh, you use a
Yeah, makes
third-party
sense.
service. You don't do SMTP anymore, really.
Yeah. We never do SMTP. We're not going to set up an SMTP server. That'd be too crazy, actually. It's a lot more painful and does not work as reliably as you think, because for email service, to set email server to get it to receive reliably and all that, it's a lot more work. It's just not worth it. Just use a third-party service for you to do that. So yeah. This is just a POC mostly. Again, useful for me, interestingly, but I don't think I'm going to adopt this. So currently, one of the things that I try to do right now is to have an acceptance test, and people writing a set of specification tests for acceptance. And instead of doing API and all that, I was using Cucumber to drive Selenium, which I realized that might be a bad idea, but it works in a way that I don't actually care the individual part. I just need it to function on the web page. So the thing is, for Cucumber to run, you need to put a language and map it to a function which called Selenium WebDriver and all that. So it would be cool. I'm in my head. It'd be really cool if I can use GPT-3 to map what I want in Cucumber to browser operation, then to watch the behavior, right? So yeah, that's an idea that I hope to have. But this guy just do it as a POC, so which unfortunate lah. But yeah, I like the idea. So anything to add on this? If not, I'm gonna move on. Let's move on. Unfortunately, there's a lot of this. Deploy Python app on Lambda, just a basic thing. Check out how you do it. It's a very standard article. For those that do not know about Lambdas, there's a very good article to look at. Now, this is context sensitive diff, meaning diff actually works line by line. So this one that do diff also, they understand the programming language. So do you think you guys are going to use it or what? Or you just going to stick with Vim diff? Huh? No, this doesn't just work for JavaScript. This also, as you can see, the demo also works for Clojure. Right? Really?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, like the source control services are already doing diff pretty nicely. I don't know.
Yeah, it's good enough, but they don't have a language context, right?
Yeah, but
so this structured diff too. Yeah, it's good enough, because the only thing we care about is line by line checking. Actually, it works most of the time. So yeah. So yeah, if you have to use command line, this is one of those tools.
Yeah,
Make a video. I already did that. So remember that the attack we love to talk about, that you can actually put a backdoor in a compiler. Then as you compile it, you will hide this. Yeah, he actually did an attack internally. So for the paper, he actually did an attack internally, and it actually worked. So which is why you can write a paper for it. There's no public attack for it, but he actually do the attack internally. Yeah.
It's a waifu picture.
Yes. Not me, by the way. This is not my page. And also they use, long story.
Are you all right?
Sorry?
No.
No, are you all right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is called new FS. This is actually this is a file system that
Send it to dev
often,
now.
yeah, correct. So they keep a snapshot and send it to dev now. So yeah, interesting stuff, but just know that it exists now. Now this is interesting. I don't think any one of us will go and get this anytime soon, right? 2 GB plan. This is like crazy big way.
Yeah, but also your hardware your home hardware needs to support it.
Correct.
One issue that I
And
heard from the residential chat group is that they always complain that time cannot reach that speed, but it's actually not. It's actually often is the the default router that they overstretch.
correct. So for example, that here's a good example that I usually have. So a lot of people would think, okay, if you don't know the tech side, thought that you would need a big, when you get like a 500 megabit plan from TM, for example, you will automatically get that. If you use the default router they have, probably they will give you that, but they have to replace the router, right? They replace the router to support the speed. If you replace the router, then you really need to replace the router to that. But here's the problem. The problem is once you have set a router, then you need to make sure that your Wi-Fi is up to the speed. Otherwise, you just waste the 500 megabit. It will get expensive. It's the same thing, except a bit worse in the way that you may want to connect this to your TV. Then you need a Cat 6E cable instead of Cat 5.
Yep.
Because
All
Cat
these
5.
things.
So your Cat 5 cable can only do like 100 megabit of a bit
Your
more.
router, your modem has enough capacity. Does your
Correct.
if you share amongst that is that the switch needs to be powerful enough.
Correct. So let's say you install it to your house. I'm going to just say your house for now. So what happened is, let's say you got a switch, you need to replace it, make sure the switch is compatible, otherwise it's a waste of time. Then you set up your Wi-Fi extender. That's another thing, because you just very likely gonna waste it. So again, anecdote, somebody asked, can we ask building management? Actually, we had a co-working space to actually switch to this. The answer is no. Those guys, I know most of us would want fast internet at work, but to do that, you need to rewire the whole office at the worst case, and they may not want to do that. So I do not know who they target, though. Interestingly, I don't know who they're targeting, but maybe some people that actually own their own house, they're actually willing to throw money on this. So, so yeah.
But is
Either
this
way,
is this
Uh-huh.
for households or is this available for commercial? Because this might be a commercial thing.
I think it's.
Or business.
I think
I
for
don't think.
whichever building that the support, because time always support high rises first.
Yeah.
Correct. So they did not say whether it. In fact, look at here, right? A home basic. So this is a home thing, so to say, right? So yeah, I think it's too. I don't think we need that now, but yeah, it's interesting actually.
This is good if you have like multiple, like how would you say, like the Airbnb with multiple rooms.
Yeah, or you have siblings that consume media, or even that they do not need it. My 500 is just fine. The 500 is fine.
Because you get to download so fast,
Yeah,
it's gonna be good enough.
yeah, it's good enough. So in my case, my sibling present, everyone is consuming media, and the Wi-Fi can handle it. So your Wi-Fi choke first. Once you do everything properly, you
Often it's
very
the
likely
hardware.
will.
It's always the hardware first. That's
Correct.
capacity.
Correct. So quickly say this: Toyota disclosed data leak after access key exposed on GitHub. Again, typical thing. Please don't share your code on GitHub. So I do not know how they're going to handle. I just hope they do not need to replace the car, right? But this is T-Connect, so it's their connectivity source connectivity app. So yeah, not that bad, but yeah. Next one is Meta, aka Facebook, releases Quest Pro. So another VR hardware, pretty expensive, in my opinion. What do you know? What do they add on top of this?
No, what do they add?
No. So
Did
I
they
don't
say?
know.
I saw the Kamak unscripted. It says that just
Yeah.
better cooling. It's the same processor. It's just that it got
Right.
better cooling, so the hardware can be pushed further.
Correct. But one of the thing that I read online is that the metaverse is not as hot anymore, for good or bad reason. Because the whole
Let's
crypto
see how
thing
it
didn't
goes
work
because
out.
Apple is trying to enter the field as well.
Correct. So
Maybe-
it's still too early. So I think the only reason the buzz died down is because crypto died down
I'll say
because
no, not really. Is that it's VR is not something that you can consume passively, unlike doom scrolling on your phone. You cannot just lie down and scroll. It's that VR is pretty physical.
yep. Yeah, I just can't imagine myself to stuck in a world where I have to move around all the time. I already have that. It's called the
one
remote.
of the
Uh-huh.
one of the like the most famous application, also a game for VR is Beat Saber, right?
Yep.
Saber is also putting itself as a fitness application
Yeah,
because it makes sense. Is that it's still pretty physical.
correct. I mean, there's a few games there, but I didn't find it. Oh, you actually. What is the sound? Okay,
What was that?
yeah.
What is what?
Tristan? I think it's called Tristan's side.
Oh,
What is what? What's the sound?
Your sounds changed to be a bit more noisy.
I don't do anything.
Like
so back to the Ethernet thing. Yeah, bond 2 times 1 gigabyte internet to Thai. Most of it have 4
I
ports.
can unmute Tristan. Oh, because Tristan muted himself.
Yeah. So the only thing is, Sina project is a bit weird in a way that we host our own server. For Office, maybe that will work, right? Let's say, for example, a good example is, let's say I decide that hosting super neural network application on AWS is too expensive. I rather my Wi-Fi died. It's okay.
Oh, okay. You're cutting off, but
Say
is that
something
okay?
again.
Say something.
So, okay. So what happened is, let's say I decided that. Okay. So let's say I decided that AWS GPU instance is too expensive, right? So then I would set one up in Office for the data for the new deep learning application thingy, right? Then I can potentially use this, but for home, not so much yet, right? Possible, interesting use case, but not there yet. Not there yet. I mean, we always have this big idea of, yeah, we're going, our home will stream our CCTV to the internet with security that we can use for our app, and we can use all this bandwidth. Never happened. Almost never happened.
And you can run out of things to download anyway.
Correct. There's only so much porn you can download.
It's basically race to finish line.
Yep, correct.
So because you have a fatter bandwidth, so you get to download faster, and you run out of things to download quick. And also, just for example, when the whole family 10-person, assuming is down something, is that if you finish the extra one's going to be reallocated to others, which they can download quicker. So is that everyone will finish really quickly.
Yep. Precisely. So yeah. So let's move back to VR. In short, Kamek are not impressed. I'm not impressed as well, but I don't think the metaverse is a thing in the future. It just don't. I think it will die off.
We have to use. We have to use it. It has to be tried. because or else it's not gonna change anything. I don't
Correct.
think. I think the Facebook beta vision of metaverse is not gonna fly, but VR is still to stick. I'm pretty much
Yeah. As a technology, it can work, and there is content being built, and there's technology being built along the way.
and it also we discover of things like if you have a total freedom of movement in VR, it gonna confuses your brain and you're gonna puke.
Yep.
So it's not as
Yes.
straightforward as we thought.
Correct. So soon but not there soon. And finally, this Grafana on-call. This is open source management. This on-call management for the open source community. So what is on-call management is really okay. So how do you manage on-call in your organization? Right.
Mostly PagerDuty, and
precisely, you have all that, right? So this is the equivalent. I believe this is the equivalent of the product from Grafana, and they open source it. In practice, no one will deploy it. Okay, I'm going to say nobody going to deploy it because we don't have the time. But it's an option that if you really have no choice, you want to do that. This is an option, and I respect that, because setting up this kind of thing is actually very painful. Sometimes you try to make do without it, but I think that's a bad idea.
Does it do the phone calls and the text message, or does it just send
I
email?
don't know. Let's check
because that's the important part of the being on call, is to make you reachable. Yeah, but how does it reach you?
I do not know. I do not know really. What is on call at this local host? What the hell? Oops, wrong thing. Let's go give her a report. I honestly do not know. Again, more of a reason. If it's hosted, chances it's already used. It's already there, but I don't know, to be honest. It's not on the blog. It's not on the blog. Let's see on their product page. But according to it, it does support what it needs to support. They just do not give me enough detail. Huh?
It's sort of like support. It's supporting our on-call, which is actually if any outlying events that it detected, you're gonna send it. We have a bot to send it to our support channel.
Correct. So so it's there. So so this is open source version and all that, but it's probably more painful. So just pay for it, to be honest. I mean, unless the company willing to pay your time, that's another story. So actually, we don't have that many things to talk about. Actually, it's more like we finish our stuff this week.
We finish early.
Yes. So let's talk about something that
lots of codes.
Yeah, because it does have a lot of codes. Here you are. It's called blah, 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 blah. Oh, the question here is DevOps guy the next generation any key guy? So you know what does it mean to be any key guy? So what happened is these are actually just like help user on the message, then press any key on the message, then press any key to continue.
Help
right?
desk. It's like be like the help desk.
Correct, precisely. It's called the help desk. Yeah. So what you guys think? This is a problem, man. Think of something.
It doesn't. It's. I think people. I don't know. I don't even know what is DevOps for a lot of organization these days. Like,
so it's a very difficult question because we don't have the terms defined.
Yeah. So a lot of the discussion here is like you have a company that have a DevOps title, but it's not well defined as a result. For example, do everyone's job. Then so one point of the whole thing is a DevOps guy is really is misunderstood. So whereas what they really want is a internal support person to set up a computer, the internal technician to set up your network, a sysadmin to set up your servers and all that. Not really, and somebody to set up things, right? A lot of it, which is not really DevOps per se.
It's I would say because the role is pretty much these days is supposed to merge between developers and like sysadmin alike.
Yeah,
But these days it went back to the specialization, and you ended up having to ask the DevOps person, just like how we ask the DBA, the database admin, and the sysadmin for resource allocation.
yes, but so one thing that in my organization, by the way, is developers. Okay, let's not talk about my organization. It's so bad, but developers prefer to code. Okay, that's the strong point. That's the thing they can focus with,
But
right?
the point of DevOps is to empower them to be able to be part of the ops as well.
Of the delivery.
Yeah.
It's
part of the
code
delivery, right?
is, because they're making a product. So that's the problem with the I want to code versus I want to make a product. Is that, or I want to build
But-
something that you want to deliver it.
Yes.
You're not an
Yes.
academician, for example, or a theorist. You don't
Correct.
just make something and then it's a castle in the air style.
Yeah, because again, so from outside the communities locally, again, when developers build product, they only care about product, as you see, right? Not the engine. So they want the Ferrari, but not the V12 engine. I don't know the size or how the engine specification, right? So I don't know. I just think that this is actually evolution of
It
developers
has something to do
in
with.
general.
It's not about the developers in general. It's because of the lack of supply of developers. Like, businesses think that when they hire someone who just wants to create pretty things, or like works of art, both back end and front end, is that, and then
Yep.
they don't want to touch anything else, then they're stuck with that, and they'll have to hire other parts. Whereas
Yep.
what should have happened is that these people should not have been paid a lot of money, because they're only doing a small part of the product creation process, right? You should be
And
more.
and the title is overused. That's it's lost its
Or
meaning these days.
they should also be incentivizing more the, like, having more connections. You might be an expert on a particular niche, but
Yep.
that's not something that you want to necessarily pay more just because you have expertise. You want to be able to connect with the rest of the business. That is what makes you more valuable as not as just an employee, but as a contributor to the value of the business. So that's the problem, is
Right.
that because it's being reinforced, businesses don't have any other choice but to hire this person because they're an expert in this particular technology. But there's no incentivization to learn the rest of the business, for example, or learn about the delivery. They can get away with getting a high salary just by doing a very focused work, and they can get away saying that, oh, this is what I want to do, which is to code. Right?
Yes.
So there's no consequence to just limiting themselves to a certain area. It's just like saying, like to your secretary, let's say that, oh, I'm only going to write letters. I'm not going to.
And also just to quote, as in not
apply
even like in certain cases, it's pretty much a rant for me. Is that pretty much whatever that they are comfortable with is not really might be related to even improving themselves.
Mhm.
Like as in, gonna learn. I'm gonna want to. I want high performance stuff, so I'm gonna learn to know what or demystify some of the misconception of how certain things work or how certain abstraction work and realize the cost of it.
Yep.
But
also-
in my
Mhm.
swimming's complaint, gonna be drill down on whatever that they felt are comfortable, that make them feel good. It might not even beneficial for everyone, including themselves in the long run.
Correct. So one of the thing is you also need to also look at the business environment as well. In Malaysia, at least, you have very different class of development environment. One is a very traditional type of
I would say swimming
environment.
is that
Those things does not. So those
Yeah.
does not actually give
I would say
incentive to learn hard
it's the same
stuff.
sample everywhere.
Huh?
I would say it's not just in Malaysia, it's that the same sample, same
Yes.
population, same
It's very
population
likely to be the case. It's very likely to be the case. It's just that I never observe it outside the country, right? Maybe
yeah,
Singapore.
I heard enough complaints from everyone.
Oh, it's even worse
Yeah.
in Silicon Valley. You'll see, right? People just jumping from job to job every year, and they're
Yep.
only doing like something like the
And
same.
so they don't have to maintain
same
code as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the opposite side. You have the one side of the traditional business where there's no incentive because the pay is so low. Those are the very traditional business. To the very high end pay where you don't actually you make a comfortable money. But you do not need the skill, right? And also, it's also very again one of my complaint. A lot of the developers like things like Firebase. Fine, you want to save time. Fine, there's a line between saving time and
I'm
also
fine by it
know
as
when
long as we understand the limitation of a certain tool that
Correct.
we use.
correct. And that I do not know where. So the only thing I do not know for sure is, do they know beyond Firebase? That's the
Round up
thing.
swimming already.
Yeah. Right. So, and yeah, that's my little complaint about again my development environment. It's just that I don't know. Okay, even in hackathon and also the incentive in Malaysia. Again, I do not know where elsewhere because I do not know. Again,
Swimming,
I
just read
do not
Hacker
know.
News. Just read the
Okay.
comment section in Hacker News. It's the same.
Yeah, and also you realize that there's not much of a technical competition. There is some, but you realize that some of the big name hackathon, for example, is very business driven than technical driven. So yeah. Yes. Yeah. Here's one. Actually, it's code, not site, because if you add a site to find is killing people. Let's not go there. Yes. In most environment, you have to do more. Okay.
Last time the name was called Code Monkey. So someone did that, which is detrimental for certain. I would say it's not really all, because you see, it's a Triton organization is a bit different. But
Yep.
They are also pretty much like remote focus. But a lot
Yes.
of them, they did it as in people. They are people that come in, take their claim their tickets, and yeah, just do it and submit, and that's about it.
Yep.
So they don't get the stake, they don't get the participation, and there's no mean for them to be associated with to whatever they're trying to do.
Yeah. So yeah, in short, I
Well,
don't believe even though
those ones though tend to pay high because you tend to compensate for the employee dissatisfaction, like you're just doing
yeah.
things. So this is like the developer equivalent of quiet quitting. What do they call it now? Quiet quitting, just doing the minimal thing that you need to
Yeah.
do. I'm assigned this ticket, I do it, I'm done. Nobody assigns me more tickets. I'm not going to do anything, and because I'm paid to do tickets, right? So
Yeah.
that's generally what's happening.
Yes,
Or then
but
again, these people are happy because they don't do anything more on a job that they don't like. So
I mean,
that's an equilibrium of sorts.
it's fine by me if they if that that is uh that is the whatever that I mean they are okay with is actually fine by me. It's just that it would be unfair to themselves even is that might as well just if they need the satisfaction or they it's just don't waste their own time as in
Yeah,
yeah.
but sometimes you really just need to, on one hand, you really just need to do the basic thing, right?
Mm.
Something it's an
I'm,
irony
I'm
because
actually okay
you
with
have
doing
two sides.
basic as long as like you have time to do whatever that you like
Yeah.
yeah.
So, but here's the thing, right? Often, what people need here, most people need is really WordPress. Okay, they really just need a WordPress and some plugin and get things done. For example, right? So sometimes you really need to. I work long enough that there's enough interesting thing for me to work with. That's the irony, but that's the a bit of the irony, right? There is enough job to do the interesting place, but the interesting thing is that maybe one sprint versus one sprint within the year, right? Most of it is fixing the CRUD, make sure the CRUD have filled or done properly. We save the thing to database and all that, and we do not want to pay for Firebase and just because we need to work with special database and all that. So yeah, most of the sprint is the basic thing until there is one sprint because we have this problem. That's where things get interesting. That's where things get weird. So the thing is, sometimes a lot of developers do uh, not enough developers that can do the interesting one sprint thing, but they can do the rest of other sprint, the basic stuff, right? So yeah, lah, that's the thing,
Yeah. So
lah.
just and also to add on to what Kyril was saying that uh, they don't have time to micromanage dev tasks because devs only know how to code, and that's the point, right? That they are paid this amount
Mm,
disproportionate right now because we have lack of developers. Ideally, because this is a pain point, you don't want to micromanage people who only know how to code. Therefore, you should
yeah.
pay more for people
Hmm.
who knows to code and more like
That
Yeah.
is
continually.
that is the distinction between senior developer. I would say is that
Mm,
with a higher level involvement, that
yeah.
would be
Yeah.
the one that separates senior from junior roles. I would say.
Hmm.
Correct.
No, yeah, and then not just yeah. Well, the that is because most of the time the salary is depending on like okay you're a senior or whatever, but it should be really on the capabilities that you have, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you
The
are being
contribution
paid for
level.
what you're able to do, and
Yeah.
if you're able to code plus do something else, you should be paid more. Whereas I
Yes.
think right now people who are actually able to like single developers, for example, who have been doing the website, the backend, the development, the deployment, the support, etc. They stagnate in some companies, not as paid as well as other companies because they just happen to be stuck at a
Mm.
company that doesn't know how to value
Mm.
development talent. So
Then they
that's
need
the
to
sad
be
part there.
empowered
Yeah.
that to know that they have the option
Well,
as well.
it's also a bit difficult, like because for example, if they have a family or they're supporting other people, sometimes stability is more important than the risk
Yeah,
of
understandable.
like not being able to be employed temporarily and then
Yeah.
for the chance to get a higher salary. So sometimes that plays a role as well.
Yeah. Because depends on how you start. If you start in doing the basic thing and stay for a few years because that's the only thing they pay you to do, is jumping out and do more is actually a whole work by itself. So if you happen to, for example, had a kid early, now you had a problem because you kind of need those money and the job don't pay you that much for the first place. So you may have to start lower if at worst, or
Well, not necessarily.
right,
Again, this is again about the incentivization, right? Like you
yeah,
can
correct.
always find a company that does
Willing,
like that allows like let's say paternity leaves
yes,
or daycare or something
correct.
that alleviates the cost of all of these
Correct.
extras in your life, because
Yes.
it's not everything needs to be monetarily compensated. Like
Yes.
sometimes services will be a lot, uh, like being able to take your child to the office if you are still doing the office, or being able to do remote work, flexible hours.
Yep.
That's already something that not that extra monetary compensation might not be able
Yeah.
to equate or to be equal to,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, and also you need, again, if you work in a smaller circle, to jump out to find the bigger circle. That's another thing. That's another risk on itself. So it's harder to build a bigger circle if you're not already in the circle, and that's actually pretty hard actually. So yeah. So in short, yes, the article is mostly yes and no, depends. Even though I'm called myself the DevOps lead, I don't even know what I do. I just clean up mess. I'm just
That's
making.
sounds
I'm just,
like DevOps to me.
yeah. I'm just introduce new
Yeah, again,
processes.
I told you,
Yeah.
if you have a DevOps department, you're doing DevOps wrong. I mentioned this
Yes.
many episodes before.
Correct. We already know that. I already know that. It just that. It just that the type of work I have to do is there.
This
So
this if in a DevOps there's only DevOps.
Mm.
yeah,
There's
I just
no
run server. Man.
and devs.
I don't call nowadays. I just say that I just run servers, man. In between, I just help people do things properly, and that's about it. So helping the developers, I don't know, making easy for developers to deploy, to test stuff, making the test is easy to run and easy to check. So yeah,
Well, I don't know. So here's the thing, right? If uh, this is more of mentoring. If the developers need to make their code easier to check, you show them how to make it easier to check. You don't do it for
yes,
them. Maybe on the first one you do it for them. You teach them how to do it, and then they do it themselves afterwards,
Sometimes
and then you have a weekly
it's
entry and all
good
of
to
these
show
things.
by
uh,
example.
Yeah,
yeah,
there shouldn't be a department whose sole job is to improve the test of your developers, because is that is stratification of work done
yes,
in to the
it's a
extreme,
career.
to that it becomes absurd.
Yeah. And I have story to tell you in coffee shop once we're done, because it's a whole story on its own. So with that said, so yeah lah. Yes, I mean ideally you should have things done properly. Developer run their system. Developer do their own tests properly. No, things will never break in production, or
No, it
things
will
you should.
happen. It will. The thing about
Yeah.
that is that it will happen. It's just that it's not
Yeah,
a separation of rules in that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
No,
it's not
no.
support.
So
Yeah,
things will break in production, but developers need to know how to at least access the logs,
yeah,
right? Or figure
yeah.
out what is wrong and fix it. They don't
To
have
be
to
able
wait
to
for SRE
No,
to
that's
page them and assign them a ticket and find out, okay, this server number here, please
yeah,
grant me access and
yeah.
whatever.
If anything, that's already done. That's why I give them deployment access and all that. So that exists. So that's easy, right? I don't know. There's few things. Yeah. There's a coffee shop talk. There's a coffee shop talk. And with that said, we have 1 minute plus before we end. So anything interesting?
No, I just posted something on Slack about being
Okay.
able to run Doom on the
Notepad.
Notepad. I don't know
Yes.
how it's actually done. I think
Yeah.
it's a text file that's being refreshed multiple times. Apparently, the binary wasn't changed, so I
Yeah.
guess Notepad and some sort of like polling on the file, or somehow
Uh-huh.
signal to that the file is changed. You want to show it on the thing?
it's just a file being refreshed.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think so. I guess so. But you can see. Well, it's
Hunter
the
actually replied with a link to the Hackers News discussion.
mm, ah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
That's
but
okay.
it's epilepsy warning as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't focus on this. The eye drive me nuts. So with that said, check our links on our page. We had all the interesting stuff here. Check our communities here. It's toward the end of the year now. Nothing really interesting
Normally, even
happening.
it's the most active period. Is that the year end is always the cool down period as well.
Correct, because people burning their leave and all that. Don't drag your leave to next year, please. I mean, 5 days probably. Just don't burn any leave. And we have Deepavali end of this month, and next month is a bit more chill. But December is the Christmas month, and which also winter solstice, and people begin to prepare for Chinese New Year early in December because Chinese New Year is in January. So yeah.
Mm.
So I think it's the middle of January, or was it toward the end? A bit toward the end. So with that said, thanks for lion us. So as usual, join us as Engineers Mind, and you can see it in our community page.
Yeah, I might need to redeploy a code. Like Heroku is actually closing down the instances.
Correct.
Need to
So
migrate
join
to
us, talk to us, and all that. So with that said, yep, thanks for coming. Let me stop remove.
Yeah, and good night. See you
And
guys.
yeah, good
Bye.
night. Yes.
See you next
Yes.
week.
Bye.